The time is 20 minutes past 9, and you're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidiri, here on Salam Media, your home of humanitarian journalism. And we'll be now shifting focus again to the GNU and another of President Cyril Ramaphosa's appointments, and a key one this time, the Department of Defense. And this one, was given to former Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga, whose appointment as the new leader of defense and military veterans has stirred controversy, with many questioning her suitability for the role due to her background as a qualified teacher. And joining us in a bit, we'll be speaking to editor at DefenceWeb, Guy Martin, just to get his reaction to the appointment of Angie Motshekga as Minister of Defense. Guy, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Salam Media.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
I think first and foremost, maybe we can start with some context before we focus on the appointment of Angie Motshekga as the minister. Just the state of the South African defense force right now. Where are we? Is it a defense force which is, strong? It can, protect South Africa's borders. How are we faring in some of the missions that we're involved in on the continent? Just the current status quo and the lay of the land regarding the South African National Defence Force.
So the SANDF at the moment, they're facing a lot of challenges. It's a difficult period for them at the moment because they've got a deployment in the DRC with the SADC mission there, and that's not going particularly well. Last week, 2 soldiers were killed by M23 rebels. That brings to 5 the total of soldiers killed in combat in the DRC this year. At the same time, there's soldiers still in Mozambique wrapping up with the SADC mission there. We've got about 1,000 soldiers on border protection duty. We've got soldiers on internal deployments, protecting Eskom power stations and doing other tasks. So the SANDF is a bit overstretched at the moment. By the Department of Defence's own estimations, the Defence Force is underfunded by 49%. So they're being overstretched and underfunded. And either what needs to happen is they need to be adequately resourced for the ever-growing number of missions that they're conducting, or those missions need to be scaled down. So I think that's one of the first priorities for the new defense minister, to try and either get more funding or to say no to the politicians and say, no, we can't deploy because we don't have the resources. In the DRC, our soldiers don't have any air support. And that's one of the reasons why soldiers keep being killed. So as you may remember, in 2013, when the SANDF first deployed Rofalk attack helicopters to fight M23 rebels, within a week of those helicopters arriving, the M23 surrendered. But at this stage, there's no air support, and our troops are taking a hammering as a result. A lot of our equipment is unserviceable, it's aging, and there's not much relief for that in sight. So as we stand, the SANDF is in a bit of a precarious situation.
With that being said, we saw the president appointing former Minister of Education Angie Motshekga as the new Minister of Defense, a decision which has taken many by surprise. What was your initial, reaction to this appointment?
Well, I can say I was also quite surprised. It's a bit of an odd choice because Motshekga has absolutely no experience when it comes to defense, or even security for that matter. So she's going to be a completely green candidate for this position. And whenever this happens, when a new minister comes in who has no defense experience, it takes months before she's able to get up to speed and get into her role. So this is going to hurt the Defence Force because there will be months of limited leadership. The good news is that she's got one competent deputy, Ante Holomisa was the former Transkei Defence Force commander, and he brings a lot of defence experience to the table. I think it would have made more sense if he was made minister and Motshekga was made deputy. President Cyril Ramaphosa has added 2 deputies to the defence portfolio. So Holomisa is serving alongside Richard Mkungo as deputy. Unfortunately, Mkungo doesn't have any defence experience either. So we have, of the three senior members of the defence portfolio, 2 have no relevant experience. But I suppose the silver lining is that one does, and hopefully that will be enough to keep the SANDF on the right track.
In your opinion, how important is it for the defense minister to have background in military affairs? Can a strong administrative and educational background compensate for the lack of direct military experience? Many saying, you don't have to be a drunkard to run a shebeen. Is this, analogy applicable to the Ministry of Defense?
I think it is. If you have a competent leader, they can run just about anything pretty well. The trouble is it takes a while to get to a point where they're comfortable and familiar enough to run things properly. I do think that the right leadership, it doesn't matter what experience you have, but it is preferable to have some sort of defense experience and have some sort of background in that field. So the jury's still out on whether Motshekga will be able to slot into defence comfortably, but I think whatever the situation, it's going to be at least several months where not much will be happening whilst she acclimatizes to the role, and that's to the detriment of the SANDF, especially when they're in the midst of this fight against M23 rebels, when there's attacks increasing. The M23 rebels, they took over another town in the DRC, and they seem to be getting stronger. So the new minister, she's got a lot of work on her plate, and it's a little bit concerning that while she acclimatizes to the role, there's a worry that the SANDF might suffer during the transition period.
Let's speak about strategic direction right now. I think you mentioned, amongst other things, some of the challenges that the SANDF faces, which include, budget constraints, aging equipment, and issues of personnel. If you are Angie Motshekga right now, stepping into the new role, what would be the specific areas within the SANDF that would require immediate attention?
I think that the first absolute priority would be trying to get more aircraft serviceable and adequately supporting our troops in the DRC. I think trying to send up some Rooivalk attack helicopters would be priority number 1. Secondly, I would try and get either Oryx or A109 helicopters to provide airlift, medical evacuation, and other support. I would, as a matter of urgency, acquire mortar locating radars, because a lot of our troops have been killed by M23 mortar fire. And also I would try and engage the presidency, Department of International Relations, and so on, to negotiate on a diplomatic level with Rwanda as the sort of unofficial backers of M23, and with the rebels themselves, to try and get a diplomatic solution going. So those would be my top priorities. Then obviously it's a matter of funding. I would engage with National Treasury and try and adequately resource the SANDF. And also I would engage with the political leadership and explain to them that the SANDF has a limited budget. It can only do so many missions at a time, and there needs to be a tough choice. Either do a few missions well, or adequately resource the Defence Force to do all of the missions well that it's tasked with.
Mm, mm. Let's now shift focus on Angie Motshekga's predecessors. I think in the previous two administrations, you had Nosivio Mapisa Ngakula there, Tande Modise. I think is the last former Minister of Defense after the appointment of Angie Motshekga in 2021 under the sixth administration. If you can give a scorecard of Angie Motshekga's two predecessors, how they fared during their 10 years ministers of defense, what would that look like? What would that be?
Out of the last two ministers, I think Thandi Modise has done a better job. She didn't. There were no scandals around her tenure, and I think she kept the SANDF on a reasonably even keel. She wasn't bad for defence, but she wasn't able to secure much in the way of additional funding. But she kept it relatively stable. As to Mapisa and Kakula, unfortunately, I think the track record is much worse. There were multiple scandals surrounding her tenure. For example, misusing South African Air Force aircraft to ferry ANC party members to Zimbabwe. There's this corruption, serious corruption allegations against her for soliciting bribes from defense contractors. And then there's other issues not directly related to defense. For example, she was accused of smuggling a Rwandan woman into South Africa, and this Rwandan was apparently her son's girlfriend. So there's a lot of controversy surrounding Mapisa and Kakula, and her scorecard I think would be far worse as a result of that.
And just lastly, before I let you go, if she's not recalled, Angie Motshekga will be the Minister of Defense for the next 5 years. Any parting shot regarding the new state of current affairs? Whether we like it or not, she's the new Minister of Defense. Just in wrapping up, what would you like to say about it?
Well, I'm optimistic that she will be able to shine in the role. And I think it's good that she's got at least one good deputy who will be able to give her some good advice, and he brings a lot of institutional knowledge and experience to the table. So I'm hoping that she will be receptive and she will listen to those with experience and knowledge and steer the SANDF in the right direction.
All right, we're going to leave it there, Guy. Thank you so much for giving us your time and giving us insights on the current state of the South African National Defence Force and the appointment of Angie Motshekga. I'm sure as her tenure unfolds, we'll be touching base with you just to critique and understand some of the major decisions that she'll be taking.
Yeah, look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was Guy Martin, editor at DefenceWeb, giving us his insights on the appointment of Angie Motshekga as the new Minister of Defense. Really, really interesting times ahead. And I'm just wondering, if you get a call from the president and he's like, hey, I want to appoint you at defense. You know you're not qualified for the job. You know you don't have the passion for the job. You know you've never interacted with the ministry at any level. Why don't you just say, no, I can't? Or this is an appointment and you must adhere by it no matter what. Because I'm pretty sure, I'm certain that Angie Motshekga, as much as I have so much respect for her, and there are, parts in the basic education ministry where she's done really well, but I'm pretty sure she doesn't want to be there. She doesn't want to be Minister of Defense. She doesn't understand the protocol. She doesn't understand what it takes to be a Minister of Defense. Why couldn't she just say no? Really interesting times ahead. We'll be looking at her very, very closely. I think this is a very, very important ministry, and it should be led by someone that really understands. And I think we're fortunate to have Bantu Holomisa, who's going to be one of the two deputy ministers in that department. Maybe he can, with his military experience, try and be of assistance to Angie Motshekga. But yeah, she has all the powers right now. She's the main person when it comes to the military and security, securing of South Africa's borders and airspace and our shores at the moment. Really interesting times. But we're going to leave it there. After this, we'll be speaking with French political analyst and head of the Committee of Justice Liberties, Yasser Louati. We'll be speaking about the rise of Le Pen's far-right party and the state that that party is in, and also the concerns that Muslims in France are increasingly having about their future regarding Le Pen. More on that after this.